Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Meridian and watched the stars. He had been in space for 15 years, but the sight still made him feel small. The deep black went on forever, dotted with tiny lights that were actually massive. Suns. Each one might have planets. Each planet might have life. "Captain, we're getting something strange on the sensors," said Navigator Lisa Barnes. She was young, maybe 28, with short brown hair and quick hands that moved across her control panel like a pianist. "There's a ship out there. Big one." Jake walked over to her station. The screen showed a green dot moving toward them. It was huge, maybe 10 times the size of the Meridian. "How big exactly?" "About 2 kilometers long, sir. It's not like anything in our database." Chief Engineer Tony Valdez looked up from his console. He was a thick man with gray hair and oil stains on his uniform. "That's bigger than our biggest warships back home." "Maybe they're friendly," said Communications Officer Amy Foster. She was always the hopeful one, with bright blue eyes and a smile that made everyone feel better. This could be first contact with a new species. Jake nodded. First contact was always exciting and scary at the same time. Humanity had only met 3 other species so far, and all of them had been peaceful. Maybe their luck would hold. "Amy, send them a standard greeting message. All frequencies." Amy's fingers danced over her keyboard. "Message sent, Captain. Universal, peace symbol, mathematical sequences, and basic language samples." They waited. The alien ship kept getting closer. Jake could see it now on the main screen. It looked like a black dagger made of metal and sharp angles. Red lights pulsed along, its sides like a heartbeat. "Captain," Lisa said, her voice tight. "2 more ships just appeared. They came out of nowhere." Jake felt his stomach drop. 3 massive ships all heading straight for them. "Are our escort ships still with us?" "Yes, sir. The Davidson and the Clark are holding position." The Davidson and Clark were small patrol ships, nothing compared to what was coming at them. Jake had brought them along just in case, but now he wondered if it would be enough. "Captain Morrison." Amy's voice was different now, worried. "I'm getting a signal from the lead ship. They're trying to talk to us." "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled. Then came a voice, deep and rough, like grinding stone. It spoke English, but with a strange accent that made every word sound angry. "Human vessel, you will stop your engines. You will prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in destruction." Jake felt his crew looking at him. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. "Amy, open a channel." "Channel open, sir." "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Meridian. We come in peace. We're explorers, not warriors. There's no need for threats." The alien voice came back immediately. "I am War Commander Zexthul of the Kithara Empire. Peace is for the weak. You will surrender your ship or we will take it by force." Tony stepped closer to Jake. "Captain, their weapons are charging. All 3 ships." Jake's mind raced. They were outnumbered and outgunned. The Meridian was an exploration ship with light, weapons and shields. The escort ships were armed, but not enough to fight 3 massive warships. "Zexthul, we don't want to fight. We can talk about this. Maybe we can help each other." Humans talk too much. "We will show you how the Kithara handle new species." The lead alien ship fired, not at the Meridian, but at the Davidson. Jake watched in horror as the small escort ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal. 23 people died in that flash of light. "They killed the Davidson!" Amy screamed. "Shields up! All power to shields!" Jake shouted. Lisa's hands flew over her controls. "The Clark is trying to run, but they're too fast." Another blast of alien fire. The Clark vanished in another explosion. 18 more people dead. Jake felt rage building in his chest, but he pushed it down. His job was to keep his crew alive. "Amy, send a surrender message. Tell them we give up." "Sir, do it. We can't fight them." Amy sent the message. The alien. Ships surrounded the Meridian like sharks around a wounded fish. Jake could see smaller ships launching from the big ones, heading toward them. "They're sending boarding parties," Tony said. "Everyone stay calm," Jake told his crew. "Don't give them a reason to hurt you. We're explorers, not soldiers." The alien boarding ships attached to the Meridian's hull with loud clanks. Jake heard cutting sounds as they burned through the airlock doors. Then came the sound of heavy boots in the corridors. The bridge doors exploded inward. Smoke filled the air. Through the smoke came the aliens. Jake had never seen anything like them. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with 4 arms and skin like black leather. Their heads were long and narrow with yellow eyes that glowed in the dark. They wore armor that looked like it was made from the bones of some giant animal. The lead alien pointed a weapon at Jake. It looked like a mix between a gun and a sword, with a blade that glowed red hot. "You are the leader," the alien said. Its voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "I'm Captain Morrison, yes. I am squad leader Vectar. You and your crew are now prisoners of the Cathara Empire. You will come with us." "Where are you taking us?" The alien's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "To learn what happens to species that dare to exist in Cathara space." More aliens came onto the bridge. They carried weapons and chains made of some kind of metal that seemed to move on its own. Jake watched as they chained up Lisa, Tony, and Amy. His crew looked scared but tried to stay brave. "Captain," Amy whispered as they put the chains on. "Her." "What do we do?" Jake looked at his navigator, his engineer, his communications officer. These people trusted him to get them home safely. He had failed them, but maybe not completely. "We survive," he whispered back. "And we remember everything we see. Someone needs to warn Earth about these things." The aliens finished chaining the bridge crew and started marching them toward the airlock. Jake took one last look at his ship, his command, his home for the past 3 years. He wondered if he would ever see it again. As they walked through the corridors, Jake saw more of his crew being captured. The aliens were taking everyone alive, which was good. Dead people couldn't escape. Dead people couldn't fight back later. Squad leader Vectar pushed Jake forward with one of his 4 hands. "Move faster, human. War Commander Zexathol wants to meet the captain of this pathetic vessel. Why did you attack us? We offered to talk." "Talk is for equals." "You are not our equals. No species is equal to the Cathara." They reached the airlock where an alien transport ship waited. It was dark inside, with cages along the walls. Jake could see other prisoners in some of the cages. Not humans, but other alien species. They looked beaten and hopeless. "How many species have you captured?" Jake asked. Vectar pushed him into an empty cage. "All of them, eventually. The galaxy belongs to the Cathara Empire. Everyone else exists only to serve us." The cage door slammed shut. Jake grabbed the bars and watched as his crew was loaded into other cages. They were scared, but alive. That was something. The transport ship started moving. Through a small window, Jake could see the Meridian getting smaller. His ship, his command, everything he had worked for was gone. But he was still alive, and so was his crew. The aliens had made a mistake. They thought humans were just another weak species to be conquered and enslaved. They didn't know that humans had something most species didn't. They had Earth. They had billions of people who cared about each other. They had a military that had never lost a war when their people were threatened. Jake smiled in his cage. The aliens thought this was over. They thought they had won by capturing one small exploration ship. They had no idea what was coming for. Them War Commander Zex Thul had just started a war with the wrong species. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center deep under the mountains of Colorado. The room was huge, filled with screens and computers and people working at dozens of stations. This was where Earth's military made its biggest decisions. Right now, those decisions could change everything. "Tell me again what the message said," Admiral Sullivan said to the young officer standing beside her. Lieutenant Dan Cooper looked at his tablet. The automated distress beacon from the Meridian activated 3 days ago. The message was short. Contact with unknown hostile aliens. 2 escort ships destroyed, crew captured, then nothing. Admiral Sullivan felt cold inside. Jake Morrison was a good captain and a good man. His crew were explorers, not soldiers. They had gone out to look at stars and maybe find new friends in the galaxy. Instead, they found something that killed 41 people and took the rest prisoner. Has the president been told? Yes, ma'am. He's on his way here now. So is Secretary Hayes. The doors to the command center opened. President Frank Coleman walked in, followed by Secretary of Defense Ron Hayes and Dr. Peter Kim from the Xenobiology Department. President Coleman was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. Secretary Hayes was shorter and rounder, but his eyes were sharp like a hawk's. Dr. Kim was young, maybe 35, with thick glasses and hands that moved when he talked. Kate, President Coleman said, what do we know? Admiral Sullivan pointed to the big screen on the wall. It showed a map of space with Earth at the center and the Meridian's last known position marked with a red dot. The Meridian was doing routine, deep space exploration here, about 40 light-years from Earth. They sent their regular check-in message, then 12 hours later we got the distress signal. What kind of aliens are we dealing with? Secretary Hayes asked. Dr. Kim stepped forward. We don't know much. The beacon's message was very short, but the fact that they destroyed 2 ships and captured the crew tells us something important. What's that? They're not interested in communication or peace. They want prisoners, which means they probably want information about Earth and human space. President Coleman looked at the map again. How long would it take them to get to Earth? If they have faster-than-light travel like we do, maybe 2 weeks, Admiral Sullivan said. Maybe less if their technology is better than ours. Then we need to be ready for them. Secretary Hayes pulled out his own tablet. I've already started moving our defense fleets into position around Earth and the colony worlds. But, Kate, we need to talk about something else. What? Do we try to rescue the Meridian's crew? The room got quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. If they tried to rescue Captain Morrison and his people, they would be starting a war with an unknown alien species. If they didn't try, they would be abandoning their own people. Admiral Sullivan looked at President Coleman. Sir, what are your orders? President Coleman was quiet for a long moment. He stared at the red dot on the map where good people were probably being hurt or killed right now. We don't abandon our own, he said finally. Ever. Kate, I want you to put together a rescue mission. Sir, that could mean war. Then we'll fight a war. But we're not leaving those people behind. Dr. Kim raised his hand. Mr. President, maybe I should tell you what we've learned from studying the beacon data. Go ahead. The energy signatures from the alien weapons are unlike anything we've seen. They're powerful, but they use a technology we don't understand. That's both good and bad news. Explain. Bad news is their weapons might be more advanced than ours. Good news is we can't predict our technology either. They probably have no idea what human weapons can do. Admiral Sullivan nodded. That gives us an advantage. They think they know what they're dealing with, but they don't. Secretary Hayes looked at his tablet again. I've got Admiral Ben Torres standing by with the 5th Fleet, 12 ships, including the carrier Washington. They can be ready to move in 6 hours. Do it, President Coleman said. Admiral Sullivan felt a familiar feeling in her stomach. It was the same feeling she got before every major operation. Part fear, part excitement, part determination. Kate, President Coleman said, I want you to understand something. This isn't just about rescuing one ship's crew. If these aliens think they can attack humans and get away with it, they'll keep doing it. We need to show them that was a mistake. Yes, sir. Dr. Kim cleared his throat. There's something else. I've been thinking about why they captured the crew instead of just killing everyone. And most predator species kill their prey immediately. But these aliens took prisoners. That suggests they want something. Information, maybe. Or they want to study us. Secretary Hayes frowned. Study us for what? To learn how to fight us better. Or to learn how many of us there are and where we live. The room got quiet again. Everyone was thinking the same thing. If the aliens were trying to learn about humanity, that meant they were planning something bigger than just one attack. How long do you think we have? President Coleman asked. Unknown, sir. But if I were them, I'd want to learn everything I could before humans started looking for me. Admiral Sullivan walked over to another screen that showed Earth's defense. Fleets. Red dots marked the positions of human warships all around the solar system. Ben Torres is a good admiral, she said, but 12 ships might not be enough if these aliens have a whole fleet waiting for us. Then we send more ships, President Coleman said. How many can we spare? Secretary Hayes did some quick math on his tablet. We could send 30 ships without leaving Earth defenseless, but that would mean pulling ships from the colony worlds. Do it. Sir, that's a big risk. If this is a trick to get us to move our fleets away from Earth. President Coleman looked at everyone in the room. Let me be clear about something. We are not going to abandon our people. We are not going to let aliens think they can attack humans without consequences. And we are not going to hide behind our defenses while our citizens are prisoners somewhere in the galaxy. Admiral Sullivan smiled. This was why she respected President Coleman. He understood what made humans different from other species. They took care of their own, no matter what the cost. I'll contact Admiral Torres immediately, she said. Good. And Kate, tell him something for me. What's that, sir? Tell him to bring them home. All of them. While Admiral Sullivan talked to Admiral Torres on a secure channel, Dr. Kim was working at a computer terminal. He was trying to analyze every piece of data from the distress beacon, looking for clues about the alien technology. This is interesting, he said to Secretary Hayes. What did you find? The energy readings from their weapons. They're consistent with something we theorized about but never built, which is plasma-based energy weapons. Very hot, very destructive, but they have some weaknesses. Secretary Hayes leaned over to look at Dr. Kim's screen. What kind of weaknesses? They use a lot of power, and they have trouble with certain types of armor, the kind we use on our newest ships. This was good news. Human technology might actually be better than they thought. On the other side of the room, Admiral Sullivan finished her call with Admiral Torres. She walked back to President Coleman. It's done, sir. Admiral Torres is moving out with 37 ships, the biggest rescue fleet in human history. How long until they reach the Meridian's last position? 18 hours if they push their engines hard. President Coleman nodded. And if the aliens are still there? Then we'll see what happens when someone tries to capture humans and keep them. Dr. Kim looked up from his computer. Mr. President, there's one more thing you should know. What's that? Based on the beacon data, I think these aliens have fought other species before. The way they operated, capturing instead of destroying, suggests they have experience with this kind of thing. You mean they've done this before? Yes, sir. To other species. They probably think we'll react the same way those species did. Secretary Hayes crossed his arms. And how did those other species react? Dr. Kim was quiet for a moment. Probably by surrendering and hoping the aliens would leave them alone. Admiral Sullivan laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Then they're in for a surprise. President Coleman walked over to the big screen showing the map of space. The red dot marking the Meridian's position seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. You know what the real problem is? He said. What's that, sir? Admiral Sullivan asked. These aliens think they understand humans because they've met a few of our people. They think we're just another species that will roll over when threatened. And we're not? President Coleman turned around to face the room. His eyes were hard like steel. No, we're not. We're the species that crossed oceans in wooden ships to find new lands. We're the species that went to war when someone attacked our harbors. We're the species that went to the moon because we decided we wanted to walk on it. He pointed at the red dot on the screen. And we're the species that will follow our people to the ends of the galaxy if someone tries to take them from us. Admiral Sullivan felt a chill run down her spine. But it was a good chill. The kind that came before a fight you knew you were going to win. Admiral Torres won't be going alone, President Coleman continued. I want every ship we can spare following. Behind him! If these aliens want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Yes, sir. The room filled with the sound of people working. Orders were being sent across the solar system. Ships were changing course. Weapons were being loaded. In 18 hours, the Al-High executor Voxlan stood in the command chamber of the Cathara flagship and watched the reports come in. The chamber was built from black stone carved with the faces of conquered species. Red lights cast shadows that made the carved faces look like they were screaming. War Commander Zexthul entered the chamber with heavy steps. His 4 arms moved, in patterns that showed respect, but Voxlan could smell his excitement. Zexthul always got excited after a successful raid. The human ship has been secured, Zexthul reported. All crew members captured alive. No losses to our forces. Good. Have you learned anything useful from them? They claimed to be explorers, not warriors. Their ship carried only light weapons. The escort ships were easily destroyed. Voxlan moved to the viewing window and looked out at the stars. The Cathara Empire controlled this entire sector of space. Every planet, every species, every resource belonged to them. It had taken 300 years to build this empire, and they had done it the same way every time. Find a new species, destroy their ships, capture their leaders, wait for them to surrender, add their worlds to the empire. Where are the prisoners being held? The moon, Kara 7. As ordered. They are in the deep cells with the other recent captives. Kara 7 was perfect for holding prisoners. It was far from any inhabited worlds, surrounded by weapon platforms, and impossible to escape from. The Cathara had been using it for 50 years to break the will of stubborn species. Have any of the humans offered to cooperate yet? Zexthul's mouth opened in what humans might mistake for a smile. Among the Cathara, it meant disappointment. No. They keep asking about their destroyed ships and demanding to speak with their leaders. The Captain Morrison refuses to give us information about human worlds or defenses. Give them time. Once they realize no rescue is coming, they will become more reasonable. This was how it always worked. A new species would fight back at first, full of pride and anger. But when days passed and no help came, they would start to understand their situation. Their leaders would offer to negotiate. Their people would pressure them to make peace. Then the Cathara would dictate terms, tribute, resources, sometimes soldiers for the Cathara armies. Always complete submission. High Executor, said Communications Officer Drakmel from across the chamber. We are receiving reports from our border stations. What kind of reports? Human ships, sir. Many of them. They are moving toward this sector. Voxlan felt a moment of surprise. Most species took weeks or months to organize any kind of response to Cathara attacks. The humans were moving much faster than expected. How many ships? At least 30, sir. Possibly more. Zexthul laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 30 ships against the entire Third Fleet? They will be destroyed just like their scouts were. But Voxlan was thinking. 30 ships was a significant force. Most species couldn't even build 30 warships, let alone send them on a rescue mission for one captured vessel. What class of ships are they? Drakmel checked his instruments. Unknown design, sir. They are larger than the ships we captured, and they appear to be heavily armed. How long until they arrive? 15 hours, sir. Voxlan considered his options. The smart thing would be to execute some prisoners and send the heads back to the human fleet as a warning. That usually made new species reconsider their aggressive actions. Zexthul. Prepare a message for the human fleet. Tell them that their people are our prisoners, and any hostile action will result in their immediate execution. Yes, High Executor. But as Zexthul left to carry out his orders, Voxland felt something he had not felt in many years. Uncertainty. The humans were behaving differently than other species. Most importantly, they were moving fast. On the prison moon, Keras 7, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his cell and listened to the sounds of the alien prison. It was a horrible place, carved deep into the moon's rock. The air was cold and thin. The lights were dim red things that hurt human eyes. But Morrison wasn't focused on the conditions. He was focused on learning everything he could about his captors. The Cathara guards walked in patterns. Every 4 hours they changed shifts. Every 12 hours, a supervisor came to check on the prisoners. Once a day, they brought something that might have been food but tasted like metal and dirt. Morrison's crew was scattered through different cells, but they could talk to each other through the thin walls. More importantly, they could talk to the other prisoners. "Captain," whispered Lisa Barnes from the cell next to his. "I've been talking to the creature in cell 7. It says it's from a species called the Vorthan." "What did it tell you?" "The Cathara have been capturing species for centuries. Always the same pattern. Attack their ships. Take prisoners. Wait for surrender." Morrison pressed his face against the small window in his cell door. He could see other prisoners in the corridor. Some looked like they had been here for years. Their eyes were empty, hopeless. How many species have they captured? Dozens, maybe hundreds. The Vorthan says its people surrendered after the Cathara captured their exploration fleet. Now the Vorthan worlds pay tribute and send workers to Cathara factories. Morrison felt anger burning in his chest. These aliens were slavers on a galactic scale. They built their empire by breaking the will of entire civilizations. "Lisa, pass word to the others. We need to start gathering information. Guard patterns, prison layout, everything. If Earth sends a rescue mission, we need to be ready to help." "You think they'll come for us?" Morrison smiled in the dark. "I know they will. The question is how long it will take." 3 cells down, Tony Valdez was having his own conversation with a prisoner from a species called the Nexari. The creature looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird, with scales that changed color when it was excited or scared. "Your people fight the Cathara?" the Nexari asked. "My people don't leave anyone behind," Tony said. "If the Cathara think they can capture humans and will just accept it, they're wrong. Many species have said that. All have surrendered eventually. We're not other species." The Nexari's scales shifted to a color Tony didn't recognize. "The Cathara are very powerful. They have destroyed entire worlds that refuse to surrender. Then they'll have to destroy Earth too, because we won't surrender." In another part of the prison, Amy Foster was talking to a creature that looked like a walking tree. It communicated by changing the color of its leaves. "How long have you been here?" Amy asked. The creature's leaves turned a deep blue. Amy had learned that meant sadness. 7 years. My people sent negotiators after the Cathara captured our research station. The negotiators never returned. What happened to your world? We pay tribute now. Food, raw materials, young people to work in their mines. It was the only way to survive. Amy felt sick. 7 years in this place, and this creature's entire species had become slaves to avoid being wiped out. My people won't pay tribute, she said. The creature's leaves turned yellow, which meant confusion. Then your people will die. Maybe, but we won't live as slaves. Back in the command chamber of the Cathara flagship, High Executor Voxland was receiving new reports. The news was troubling. The human fleet has grown to over 40 ships, reported Drakmel. And they are not slowing down. Have they responded to our message about executing prisoners? Yes, sir. They said any harm to their people would result in the complete destruction of all Cathara forces in this sector. Zexthul laughed again. Empty threats. 40 ships cannot defeat the Third Fleet. But Voxlan was not laughing. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever threatened to destroy Cathara forces. They begged, they negotiated, they offered tribute. They did not make threats. What is the status of our fleet? 67 ships ready for battle, sir, including 3 dreadnoughts. Good. But I want to understand these humans better before we destroy them. Bring me the human captain. An hour later, Captain Morrison was dragged into the command chamber. He was dirty and tired, but his eyes were still sharp and angry. 2 Cathara guards held his arms while Voxlan studied him. I am High Executor Voxlan. You will answer my questions. Morrison looked around the chamber, taking in every detail. The carved faces of conquered species, the weapon displays, the star charts showing Cathara territory. I'm Captain Jake Morrison, United Earthship Meridian. I demand that you release my crew and return us to human space. You demand? Voxlan found this amusing. You are prisoners. You demand nothing. My people are coming for us. Yes, we know about your fleet. 40 ships against 67. They will be destroyed, and then we will visit your worlds. Morrison smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. 40 ships? Is that what you think? Your fleet will arrive in 6 hours. We have counted them. That's not my rescue fleet, Morrison said. That's my scouting force. The chamber went quiet. Voxlan felt something cold in his stomach. Explain. You attacked 1 exploration ship and 2 escorts, 43 people. You think we'd send 40 ships to rescue 43 people? Morrison looked directly at Voxlan with eyes that showed no fear at all. We're sending everything, every ship, every weapon, every soldier we have. You wanted to meet humanity? Congratulations. In about 6 hours, you're going to meet all of... Supreme Overlord Krexvan stood in the highest tower of the Cathara homeworld and looked down at the city below. Millions of his people moved through the streets like dark rivers. The city stretched to the horizon, all black stone and red lights, built on the bones of a dozen conquered civilizations. But today, Krexvan was not admiring his empire. Today, he was angry. Tell me again how 200 human ships appeared without warning, he said to the communications officer standing behind. Him. Supreme Overlord, our scouts reported 40 ships initially, but the humans were hiding the rest somehow. Our sensors could not detect them until they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Krexvan turned around. His 4 arms moved in patterns that meant extreme displeasure. The communications officer stepped back instinctively. And what is the status of the Third Fleet? Heavy losses, Supreme Overlord. High Executor Voxlan reports that the human weapons are more advanced than expected. We lost 18 ships before managing to retreat. 18 ships. The Cathara had not lost 18 ships in the last 10 years combined. Most species could barely damage Cathara vessels, let alone destroy them. Where is the human fleet now? They have surrounded the prison moon Kara 7. They are demanding the return of their prisoners. Krexvan walked to a wall covered with star charts. Each red dot represented a world that belonged to the Cathara Empire. Thousands of worlds, billions of subjects, centuries of conquest. Has any species ever made such demands before? No, Supreme Overlord. Usually they offer tribute in exchange for their people. This was exactly what worried Krexvan. The humans were not behaving like conquered species should behave. They were acting like equals, or worse, like conquerors themselves. How? Many human worlds are there? Our intelligence suggests 12 colony worlds in their homeworld, 13 worlds total. The Cathara Empire controlled over 3,000 worlds. By any logical calculation, the humans should be begging for mercy. Supreme Overlord, the communications officer said carefully. War Commander Zexthul requests permission to execute some of the human prisoners. He believes this will force their fleet to withdraw. Krexvon considered this. Public executions had worked before with stubborn species. The sight of their leaders dying usually convinced them. To negotiate, yes, but do it properly. I want the entire galaxy to see what happens to those who challenge the Cathara Empire. On the prison moon, Keras 7, Captain Morrison was dragged from his cell by 4 guards. They moved him through corridors carved from solid rock, past hundreds of other cells filled with prisoners from dozens of species. They brought him to a large chamber with a platform in the center. Above the platform, cameras and broadcasting equipment were set up. This was where the Cathara made examples of troublesome prisoners. War Commander Zexthul was waiting for him, along with several other high-ranking Cathara officers. The platform was stained dark with the blood of previous executions. "Captain Morrison," Zexthul said, his voice echoing in the stone chamber. "You have the honor of being the first human to die for the glory of the Cathara Empire." Morrison looked around the chamber. He could see camera lenses focusing on him. This execution would be broadcast across the galaxy as a warning to other species. "My death won't stop what's coming," Morrison said. "Your death will convince your fleet to withdraw. No species fights once they see their leaders executed." Morrison was forced to his knees on the platform. Zexthul drew his ceremonial blade, a curved weapon that glowed with heat. The cameras moved closer. "Any last words, human?" Morrison looked directly into the nearest camera. Somewhere out there, his crew was watching. Somewhere out there, Earth was watching. "My name is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Meridian. I am about to die, but my people will not abandon me. They will come for my body. They will come for my crew. And they will come for every innocent being these monsters have enslaved." He took a breath and spoke louder. "To my crew listening to this, remember everything you've seen here. Remember every face, every name, every injustice. Someone needs to survive to tell Earth what these creatures really are." Zexthul raised his blade. The cameras focused on Morrison's face, expecting to see fear. Instead, they saw determination. "Earth," Morrison said. "Remember us." The blade came. Down. But something went wrong. Just as Zexthul's weapon touched Morrison's neck, explosions rocked the chamber. The lights went out. Emergency alarms started screaming. In the darkness, Morrison heard the sound of weapons fire and running feet. "What is happening?" Zexthul shouted. A guard ran into the chamber. "War Commander, the humans have escaped. They're attacking the control center." Morrison smiled in the darkness. Lisa, Tony, and Amy had not been sitting quietly in their cells. They had been planning. The lights came back on, but they were different now. Instead of red Cathara lighting, white human emergency lights filled the chamber. Someone had taken control of the prison's power systems. "Impossible," Zexthul said. "The prison is escape-proof." "You forgot something," Morrison said as he stood up. The guards had loosened their grip when the explosion started. "You locked us up with prisoners from dozens of other species, people who hate you as much as we do." More explosions shook the chamber. Through the walls, Morrison could hear the sound of fighting. Not just human voices, but the voices of many different species working together. Amy Foster's voice came over the prison's communication system. She had taken control of the broadcasting equipment. "This is Communications Officer Amy Foster of the United Earthship Meridian. To all human ships in the area, we have control of sections 7 through 12 of the prison facility. We are holding the main power center and communications hub." Morrison looked at Zexthul. "Looks like your execution just became a rescue operation." The war commander snarled and raised his weapon again. But before he could strike, the chamber doors exploded inward. Through the smoke came Lisa Barnes, carrying a Cathara weapon she had taken from a guard. Behind her were Tony Valdez and a dozen prisoners from different species. "Captain!" Lisa shouted. "Are you hurt?" "Not yet," Morrison said, ducking as Zexthul swung his blade. "But we need to move. How many prisoners have you freed?" About 200 so far, Tony said, firing his captured weapon at Cathara guards. Turns out when you lock up people from dozens of different species, some of them know how to break things. A prisoner that looked like a walking crystal spoke in a voice like wind chimes. The Cathara security systems were not designed to handle coordinated resistance from multiple species working together. Morrison grabbed a weapon from a fallen guard. "What's our status?" Amy's voice came over the communications again. "Captain, I'm broadcasting our location to the human fleet. They're sending dropships. How long? 20 minutes. 20 minutes to hold a position against the entire Cathara garrison on Karis 7. Morrison looked around at the freed prisoners. Humans, Vorthans, Nexari, and species he didn't recognize. All of them angry. All of them ready to fight. Everyone. "Listen," Morrison said. "We need to hold the control center for 20 minutes. After that, Earth's military will handle the rest." A Vorthan prisoner stepped forward. "Captain Morrison, my people gave up fighting the Cathara years ago, but watching you humans refuse to surrender has reminded us what we used to be." The crystal creature chimed in agreement. "My species has been slaves for 30 years. Today, we remember what freedom feels like." Morrison felt something he had not expected. Pride, not just in his own species, but in all the species working together to fight their captors. "Then let's show the Cathara what happens when they try to break people who refuse to stay broken." The battle for the prison lasted exactly 19 minutes and 37 seconds. Morrison's mixed group of prisoners held the control center against waves of Cathara guards. They used captured weapons, improvised explosives, and most importantly, knowledge from dozens of different species about Cathara technology and tactics. When the human dropships arrived, they found most of the prison already under prisoner control. Colonel Mike Chen led the rescue force. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from previous battles. He found Morrison in the communications center, coordinating the evacuation of freed prisoners. "Captain Morrison, I'm Colonel Chen. We're here to bring you home." Morrison looked around the communications center. Amy was still broadcasting information about Cathara positions to the human fleet. Tony was helping alien prisoners operate human rescue equipment. Lisa was coordinating with the pilots of incoming dropships. "Colonel, we can't just take the humans and leave. There are hundreds of prisoners here from dozens of species. They helped us escape. My orders are to rescue human personnel." "Then, I'm changing your orders," Morrison said. "We don't leave anyone behind. Anyone who wants to come with us gets a ride to human space." Colonel Chen hesitated. This was not part of the mission plan. Amy looked up from her communications equipment. "Colonel, you need to hear this. I've been monitoring Cathara communications. They're not just slavers." "What do you mean?" "They've been systematically destroying entire species, not just conquering them, wiping them out completely. I count at least 12 species that are completely extinct because they refuse to surrender." Morrison felt cold. Genocide. Commander Jake Miller rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the strange crystal sitting on his desk. The thing was no bigger than his fist, but it had caused more excitement on the ship than anything he had seen in 20 years of space service. The crystal came from the wreckage of an alien ship they had found drifting near Pluto 3 days ago. Jake picked up the crystal and held it up to the light. It was clear like glass, but seemed to glow from inside with a soft blue color. Dr. Lisa Grant had been working on it for hours, trying to make sense of what it contained. She said it was some kind of data storage device, like a computer hard drive, but far more advanced than anything humans had ever built. The door to his office opened, and Lisa walked in. She looked excited, but also worried. Jake had known her for 5 years and could read her face like a book. Something big was happening. "Jake, you need to see this right away," Lisa said. She sat down across from his desk and pulled out her tablet. "I finally got the translator working on the crystal. What I found inside is going to change everything we know about our place in the galaxy." Jake set the crystal down and leaned forward. "What kind of data are we talking about?" Lisa touched her tablet screen and showed him a three-dimensional map that appeared to float above the device. The map showed stars and planets spread across a huge area of space. Jake could see trade, routes marked in different colors connecting various star systems. It was clearly a map of some kind of galactic civilization. "This is incredible," Jake said. "How many different worlds are connected in this network?" "Over 3,000 star systems," Lisa replied. "But that's not the strange part. Look at this section here." She pointed to an area of the map that appeared completely empty. "This is where we are. This is Earth's solar system." Jake stared at the empty space on the map. "Maybe they just haven't explored this far out yet." Lisa shook her head. "No, Jake. Look at this." She touched the screen again and the view changed. Now the empty area had a red border around it. Symbols appeared near the border in what looked like alien writing. "The computer translated these symbols. They're warnings." "Warnings about what?" "About us. About Earth." Lisa's voice was quiet now. "The translation says quarantine zone, primordial terror, do not approach." There are similar warnings in 17 different alien languages. Jake felt his blood go cold. "Are you telling me that aliens have been avoiding Earth on purpose?" "Not just avoiding it. They've marked our entire solar system as forbidden territory." Lisa brought up more files from the crystal. "I found shipping manifests, military reports, and communication logs from dozens of different species. They all show the same thing. Every alien civilization knows about the area around Earth, and they all stay away from it." Jake stood up and walked to the window of his office. Outside, he could see the endless stars that humans had dreamed of reaching for centuries. They had finally built faster-than-light ships and traveled to other star systems, thinking they were the first intelligent species to explore this part of the galaxy. Now it seemed they were wrong about everything. "How long have they been avoiding us?" Jake asked. Lisa scrolled through more data on her tablet. "The oldest records I can find go back about 5,000 years, but some of the warning beacons appear to be much older than that." "Warning beacons?" "Physical structures placed throughout space around our solar system. They broadcast warnings to any ship that gets too close." Lisa showed him another image on her tablet. It looked like a massive crystal tower floating in empty space. "According to the navigation data in this crystal, there are hundreds of these beacons forming a sphere around our entire solar system." Jake sat back down heavily in his chair. This was too much to process all at once. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they were learning that not only were they not alone, but the entire galaxy had been actively avoiding them for thousands of years. "There's more," Lisa continued. "I found references to something called the Guardians of Sol. Sol is what some of these aliens call our sun. The Guardians are mentioned in dozens of different files, always with what seems like fear or respect." "What do the files say about these Guardians?" "Not much that makes sense. The translations talk about beings of impossible power and protectors of the forbidden world. Some files mention ships that tried to approach Earth and were never seen again." Jake thought about this for a moment. If these aliens have been avoiding Earth for thousands of years, how did we manage to develop space travel without anyone noticing? "That's just it," Lisa said. "I think they have been noticing. Look at this file." She showed him a document that appeared to be some kind of intelligence report. "This was written just 50 years ago. It talks about the awakening of the soul. Species and primitive vessels beginning to explore beyond their world. They've been watching us, but they never made contact. No. And according to these files, they never will. Every species that has tried to make contact with Earth has either disappeared or fled in terror." Jake picked up the crystal again and turned it over in his hands. Such a small object, but it contained information that would change human history forever. "Lisa, who else knows about this?" "Just you and me right now." I wanted to make sure I understood what we were dealing with before I told anyone else. Jake nodded. This was the kind of discovery that could cause panic on Earth if it was handled wrong. People had always assumed that if aliens existed, they would either be friendly or hostile. No one had considered that they might be terrified of humanity. We need to learn more before we report this back to Earth Command, Jake said. If there really are warning beacons around our solar system, we need to find one and see what it says. The nearest beacon, according to this data, is about 2 light-years away, Lisa replied. It would take us 3 weeks to get there with our current engines. Jake made his decision. Plot a course for the beacon, but keep this information between us for now. I want Captain Roy Bennett to know what we're doing, but no one else until we understand more about what we're dealing with. Lisa nodded and started to leave, then turned back. Jake, what if the reason these aliens are afraid of Earth isn't because of some guardians? What if they're afraid of us? Jake had been wondering the same thing. Humans were violent by galactic standards. They had spent most of their history fighting wars and developing better ways to kill each other. Maybe the galaxy had good reason to keep them quarantined. We'll find out soon enough, Jake said. But one way or another, humanity deserves to know the truth about why we've been alone all this time. After Lisa left, Jake sat in his office staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, hundreds of alien civilizations were going about their daily lives, trading goods, sharing knowledge, and exploring new worlds. And all of them were carefully avoiding the small yellow star that humans called home. The question that kept running through his mind was simple but terrifying. What had humanity done to make the entire galaxy afraid of them? And more importantly, what would happen when the galaxy learned that humans were no longer content to stay on their own world? The crystal sat on his desk, glowing softly in the dim light of his office. Inside it were the answers to questions humanity had been asking for centuries. But Jake suspected that learning those answers was going to be more dangerous than remaining ignorant. He picked up his communication device and called the bridge. Captain Bennett, this is Commander Miller. We need to change course immediately. I'll explain everything when I get to the bridge. As Jake walked through the corridors of the ship toward the bridge, he realized that this moment would be remembered as the end of humanity's childhood. They were about to learn that they lived in a galaxy full of life, wonder, and terror. And for the first time in their history, they were going to have to decide what kind of neighbors they wanted to be.